This weekend, the race for the minor premiership heats up. Welcome back to the Sports Playbook. We are Australia's weekly sports news podcast covering men's and women's sports. So here is everything that happened this weekend in sports. In rugby league, the Warriors smashed the Penrith Panthers. The New Zealand Warriors had their best game of 2026 and they saved it for their best opponents against the Penrith Panthers. The Warriors beat the Panthers 28-12 in a massive victory for this club. For the first 60 minutes, the New Zealand Warriors just left the Penrith Panthers absolutely speechless, and that came through Luke Metcalf. Metcalf came into this side through an injury and he set this game on fire with 2 tries, and he is likely to lead the charge for the Warriors for the remaining rounds. When you look to the Penrith Panthers, this game was definitely one to forget, and unfortunately there's a casualty that comes from this game. Isaah Yeo looks likely to have suffered a pec injury. If this is confirmed and if he's ruptured his pec, he will likely not be playing any more league until the end of the 2026 season, which could potentially put him in jeopardy for the Rugby League World Cup. The Rugby League Grand Final is 8 weeks away, and a pec injury can take between 10 weeks. So this is a massive blow for the Penrith Panthers. In the other games, the Cowboys have bounced back from their worst loss in their club history. They beat the Gold Coast Titans 30-8. And also in the minor premiership race, the Sydney Roosters keep their chances alive as they beat the Bulldogs 20-18. For the Bulldogs, they had a second half surge and they led by 10 points with 13 minutes remaining. But the Sydney Roosters plucked back the lead and they won this game by 2 points. This was a big game for their finals chances. The Storm, they beat the Manly Sea Eagles 42-20 in a massive upset in Perth. The Dolphins, they beat the Broncos 40-32. So the Brisbane Broncos are absolutely out of the finals race. A massive blow for this club. The Bunnies, they beat the Eels 28-24. And the Newcastle Knights, they just beat the Raiders 30-24. So for the Knights, they've just solidified 5th position as they beat the Raiders. The one game that is still to come is the Dragons up against the Sharks. Also in rugby league, the NRL is set to launch Global Round. Peter V'landys, the chairman of the NRL, is set to launch the Global Round for 2028. And this will see rugby league, being NRL, going to Asia, Europe, alongside North America. As it currently stands, the NRL has a contract to keep going back to Las Vegas, and that will have the 2027 edition with 3 matches coming for that edition. Whilst this part hasn't been confirmed, it is likely, and it's been reported by Code Sports, that the 3 other locations that NRL is looking to go to for 2028 is Hong Kong, Japan, and England. For the NRL, they would like to host 2 rounds in 2028 overseas, so any of those 4 locations, plus the Las Vegas round. And if they went back to Las Vegas, that would be the 5th time in a row they've gone back under that contract. At the end of 2028, the Las Vegas contract will be up. So what will be interesting here, does the NRL make their decision to stay in Vegas, or do they take it somewhere else in North America? Because one thing is clear, the NRL want to expand, especially in that North American market. So where do they go to that's good from North America, but good from an Australian time zone perspective? That will be the challenge for the NRL in the coming years. And as it currently stands, from 2027, the only team that would have not gone to Las Vegas is the Perth Bears. And that's because the Bears will be joining the NRL competition next year in 2027. So those 4 teams that are going to Vegas next year is the Melbourne Storm, the Gold Coast Titans, the Parramatta Eels, and the West Tigers. In netball, the Sunshine Coast Lightning signed Maddie Brown. It was revealed on Friday that the Sunshine Coast Lightning have signed Maddie Brown as assistant coach at the Lightning. For Maddie, this is an exciting prospect because this will be the first time that she's been signed to a Super Netball club as an assistant coach. For Maddie, she'll be under the leadership and guidance of head coach Belinda Reynolds. And what's interesting here is Belinda is only signed on a 1-year contract with the Lightning. Brown, she's represented the Australian Diamonds on 61 occasions before she retired at the end of the 2020 season. Plus, Maddie Brown has won 2 Liz Ellis medals back in 2012 and 2014. Alongside Maddie Brown's news, the West Coast Fever dropped an absolute bombshell. Their captain, Jess Anstis, has not been offered a contract for 2027. For Jess, she has played 149 games for the West Coast Fever, but the Fever have decided not to offer their captain a contract for 2027. With the player signing period, we are very likely to see more of these shocking headlines coming through. Unfortunately, this is the business of sport. When you look at the Super Netball playing landscape, there is only 80 contracts that are up for grabs. Plus, there is not any solidification when it comes to the ANZ Premiership. We don't know what's going to happen there. So, those 80 playing positions and the talent pool have just increased, but the size of the contracts have gotten smaller. So this will be one to watch. This week, we are likely to see only news around if players have not been offered a contract or if they are re-signing to their club. From August 16th, this is when we can expect new players going to new clubs. That signing news should come out. So from August 16th to August 28th, that's when you can expect the big news around who's going to be changing clubs. But until then, it'll be players re-signing, and if the clubs have not offered their 2026 players any contracts. In AFL, the Melbourne Demons knock off the Fremantle Dockers. The Dockers continue to lead in the AFL, but the Demons have just knocked off the Dockers by 4 points in a historic game. After this weekend, there is only 2 more rounds remaining, so this is a massive upset when it comes to that final series. But let's run through the rest of the games. North Melbourne, they beat the Western Bulldogs by 23 points. The Brisbane Lions, they bounced back from a shocking loss from Carlton. They went on to beat Hawthorn by 67 points. The Sydney Swans got a massive win over Port Adelaide by 97 points. So the Swans are starting to get that momentum heading into that final series. Geelong, they beat Essendon by 67 points. The Crows just beat Richmond by 9 points. GWS Giants, they took a loss to the Gold Coast Suns, so that's likely to rule them out of the AFL final series. And as we record this podcast, Collingwood are currently playing the West Coast Eagles, and St Kilda Carlton has not started yet. St Kilda against Carlton is all for the wildcard placings. In rugby union, Les Kiss kicks off his Wallabies campaign in style. The Wallabies played up against Japan for the first time under Les Kiss, who is the new test coach for this Wallabies outfit. They got a big victory, 35-32 against Japan in Osaka. But it wasn't without a nervy finish, as Japan were able to claw back this game to within 3 points. But this is a big momentum shift for the Wallabies. We are 1 year out from the Rugby World Cup, so any victory for the Wallabies is great momentum heading into the home World Cup. The second test for the Wallabies up against Japan will come in Townsville, and that will be on August 15th, so one to watch there. So that is your weekend wrap up. On Thursday, I'll be back with the week's big storylines and everything you need to know heading into the new weekend in sports. So until then, follow the Sports Playbook. We are your go-to for fast sport news without the noise. You can follow us on all social platforms and send this podcast to one more person that's never listened to the Sports Playbook before. They'll get their fast sport news without any noise. Thanks for tuning in. We will catch you on the next episode.